It is the most famous, most photographed plane in the world. But when you walk into the hangar at Andrews Air Force Base and talk to the people who work on it, Air Force One means more than that.
I've got 230 hand-picked folks that have tremendous pride to make sure this jet works perfectly every time for the President of the United States.
Colonel Mark Tillman is completing 30 years in the Air Force, the last 8 as the President's pilot.
What is it like to land in a foreign country as the pilot of this plane with the United States of America emblazoned across the side?
You see people from all over the world waiting to see Air Force One, but more important, waiting to see the President of the United States and America arrive on their soil. The flag in the United States of America is, we brought the United States to that country.
And all 230 people who work on Air Force One and the backup 747 have a keen sense of dedication.
We don't accept failure, so it's a zero failure mission. The goal for us is we are kind of the men in black, so we hang behind.
Myself and my crew take great pride in this because it's a sense of ownership. It says United States on the side, but we think of it as ours.
Master Sergeant Rick Cousineau is the crew chief. He leads a team of 17 who check and then double and triple check the plane.
Where other 747s would be, when things are fixed, it's because they're broken. We find things before they're broken and fix them before they become a problem.
The crew doesn't wash the plane. That would leave water spots. So they polish everything, even the tires, by hand.
We probably checked out, I would say, 200 to 300 rags, and they all have to be accounted for by every person when they go to check in at the end of the day.
And what if there are 199 rags?
Then we will search this airplane until we find it.
Staff Sergeant Jessica Cottrell has worked on Air Force One less than 5 months.
I know that I could be part of safely, making sure the President gets where he needs to go. And every time I walk in, you get so caught up in the routine, but then, I walk in and I just can't believe it.
Safety and security are the top priorities. Thousands of parts for the plane are stored in the hangar, so if there's any problem, it can be fixed immediately.
It's a secure facility. All the parts have been bomb swept, listening device swept, so they're ready to go to be put on the President's aircraft.
So if you suddenly need an
And in case there
aileron,
should be a problem while the President is on his trip, they carry spares for any part that has ever failed in the back of the plane.
We can't fail the President, nor do we ever fail the President. So we haven't failed him yet, and we're not about to.
Now it was time to climb on board Air Force One to find out what's behind the gleaming fuselage. Chief Flight Attendant Reggie Dixon greeted us. He has worked on the plane for 10 years, the last 4 serving the President.
Air Force One will leave Andrews Air Force Base self-contained.
What he's talking about is no matter how long the trip, the plane leaves with all the food it needs. They have 2 galleys that can serve 100 meals at a time. The President gets his own menu.
can you tell us anything about his special tastes?
I just tell you, he's from Texas, so he loves his beef.
One item we noticed in the galley, a special list, which tells exactly how top staffers like their coffee.
I've noticed some people are on this,
Right.
and some people aren't on it. So is it a big deal to make the coffee order list?
Well, we don't necessarily advertise it, so most people don't really know if they are on it or if they're not.
Then Dixon took us forward to the presidential suite.
I'd like to welcome you to the President's Oval Office aboard Air Force One. As a crew, we like to look at this as the Oval Office for the President while he's on board the airplane. The President will come in and take off his suit jacket, and the very first thing he'll grab is the crew jacket, put it on, and we like to think that the President will have everything that he would need within arm's reach. We have secure phones available to the President as well as non-secure phones. The office is also set up so in the event the President needed to address the nation, video teleconferencing way, he can do that as well.
But, Dixon told us, staff and guests don't just wander up to the President's office.
The protocol on the airplane is that wherever your assigned seat is, you can go aft of your seat, but you should not come forward.
Now, it was time to see the most private area on Air Force One.
I'll take you back to the President's personal quarters. As you can see, we have a lavatory, full-range shower, vanity, double sink.
Can I see the shower?
Absolutely.
All right. Now that, for an overnight trip, has got to be quite a luxury to be able to take a shower.
It is. The president also likes to exercise, as we all know. So there'll be times where we'll travel. He'll exercise for about an hour on a bike, and then he'll be able to come in here, get a nice shower, and get off the airplane looking like the president that he is. And this is the suite.
This is the President and First Lady's private
Suite.
quarters.
Absolutely. As you see right now, we currently have this area set up where there's 2 beds available for the President and First Lady.
Now, I understand the President's particular about his pillows. Does he have special pillows?
He does. It's not out right now, but he likes a very soft pillow. And
you've got
we
it.
have it.
That's
we most
good.
definitely have it. It's a touch of a button, and they will go down.
And given the irregular hours of a presidential trip, the first couple can rest day or night.
And then another touch of a button, and they can all come right back up.
Presidents have had their own plane since Franklin Roosevelt in 1944 commissioned this C-54 called the Sacred Cow. In 1962, John Kennedy started flying on the first presidential jet. A year later, it would take him to Dallas and bring back his body. In 1990, this 747 took over as Air Force One. Colonel Tillman is the 12th presidential pilot.
This is the flying White House, so similar to the White House, there's an area for the Secret Service to guard the First Family's quarters.
So there are 2 guys stationed here all
Absolutely.
the time?
Similar to the White House.
Okay.
Up there. We've got a medical annex, so we've got a hospital on board where the White House Medical Unit has a doctor and a nurse that'll travel with them all the time. And we've got medical equipment to go ahead and stabilize the president, and then we can get him to a hospital if necessary while we're flying.
Next, Tillman took us to the president's conference room, originally designed as the Situation Room, but now used for meeting with staff on the plane or around the world.
The president will sit right here. He's got the communication he needs to direct the nation as necessary, but he's also got the capability of a 50-inch plasma screen up top where he can actually do video teleconferencing.
One thing we learned is there's a dividing line in the plane. In the forward section, the seatbelts have the presidential seal, denoting that area's special status.
We'll move out of the White House. The tan carpeting is what we consider the White House, and then we'll move into a guest area.
When we get to the blue carpeting, we're out of the White House.
Yes, sir.
Colonel Tillman took us to the area where guests sit, but in recent years it's also been used to carry the remains of former presidents to the nation's capital and then back home.
This area is set up for the president that has fallen will lay in state back here. So the chairs will come out, the table comes off, the table right there comes out, and then the casket will lay in state right here. But we'll take care of the president from basically in office to when he lays in state. The Air Force One will take care of the president. For like Nancy Reagan and President Reagan, we made the front of the aircraft exactly the way it was when President Reagan was president. So we pulled out the President Reagan's Air Force One jacket. We had Nancy Reagan's jacket. We put them on the chairs up front with the books and the candies and whatever, just to make them at home.
Finally, it was time to head upstairs.
This is the communications suite, so the backbone of the aircraft. So all the phones that you see on board, everything connects up into this area.
How many phones?
About 87 phones. So basically on one side is all the phones on the jet. On the other side are phone lines that they have available, so they're just plugging and playing.
Now, what's the difference in color over here on the right?
The normal communications are in the gray, and then the red is for basically once we want to make a classified call or a secure call for the president or any of the staff, it's available to them.
Colonel Tillman then took us into his office, the cockpit of Air Force One, where he has been an eyewitness to our nation's recent history.
I was with President Bush on September 11th in 2001.
Tillman bristles at stories. Mr. Bush was reluctant to return to Washington after the attacks on 9/11.
Many thought he might have been running around the United States, and that wasn't the case. We as the military were protecting him. The president wanted to get back to Washington right away to lead the country, but he was leading the country on Air Force One.
In fact, the colonel was so worried after the initial attacks, he had Air Force personnel guard his cockpit.
I did ask our head security forces person to go ahead and remain up in the crew rest area to make sure that there was until we had everybody accounted for on the aircraft.
So even the people on board Air Force One, you were concerned we might not know who's here?
I just went with the worst case.
The other indelible memory, Thanksgiving 2003, when Tillman flew Air Force One on a secret mission to Baghdad so Mr. Bush could have dinner with the troops.
How did you feel about flying the President of the United States into a war zone?
The president was up in the cockpit with me then, and that's one of the things he mentioned was, what is about bringing the president into a war zone. Prior to taking off, I was extremely concerned because I want my kids when I'm granddad, I want all my grandkids to know that the history books show that Colonel Tillman got him in there safely and got him out.
One thing the colonel won't discuss is security on the plane. It reportedly has defenses to ward off surface-to-air missiles and the effects of a nuclear blast. All Tillman says is the president is well protected. It turns out by tradition, when a president leaves office, so does his pilot, which means come Inauguration Day, 2 public servants will be stepping down.
What's it going to feel like the last time you push the throttle forward and take your president back to Texas?
As the throttles go forward and I start heading to Texas, it's bring back a lot of memories of what I've accomplished over the last 8 years with the president. But once we land there, my deputy, who will be the next president's pilot, I'll move over to the right seat. I'll be his co-pilot. My name tag will come off. His name tag will come on. And it'll be truly an honor for him and truly an honor for me to have served President Bush.